Greetings folks, Eler here. It's been quite a while since I've changed the opening and closing cinematics for my videos, and I did feel like it was time for a change. I wanted something that had some action from World of Warships in it and had some music, so please let me know your thoughts and please share your feedback in the comments below on these changes. As with all guest submissions, I am very honored to introduce Ranari, who is a very enthusiastic and very well-researched secondary build and brawler player. In fact, Ranari runs his own YouTube channel called Ranari's Brawling channel that I encourage everyone to check out. He goes into a lot of depth and a lot of detail around different builds and how to play different ships based on these builds. Covers German battleships, French, the USS Massachusetts, etc. He's even gone to the extent of identifying a couple of bugs with secondaries on a couple of ships, the Bismarck and the Alsace. So a lot of good detail and very well-researched player around his builds. For this match, Ranari is sailing the Tier 10 German battleship, the Großer Kurfürst, and he is divisioned with Not Defect, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that correctly, who is sailing in the Tier 10 U.S. Navy heavy cruiser, the USS Des Moines. Now, Ranari runs what I call an all-in secondary build, where he takes every upgrade and every skill available to maximize the performance of his secondaries. Now, for folks that have watched my secondary build video from a couple of months ago, they know I'm not a big fan of that type of build, but there's no right or wrong build for secondaries. People should play what they're comfortable with and what they like to play in order to enjoy the game. And Ranari is definitely going to make this all-in secondary build work for himself and his team. Ranari has started out here looking to support the Bravo cap along with the Des Moines. Actually, I don't think I mentioned this is being played on Warrior's Path as a domination match. But he's looking to support the Bravo cap along with his ally Des Moines here at Bravo. We do know that the opposing Kitakaze has slipped into the Bravo cap, and there's an allied La Fantasque, which is the Tier 8 French destroyer that's also looking to contest the cap. Now, the Fantasque has obviously a disadvantage that it doesn't have smoke. In the event that it gets detected, it has a hard time in these close engagements to be able to get out of trouble. It has to rely on its speed in order to get away from trouble. So he's running a little bit of risk here, at being in a position where the Kitakaze could detect him or perhaps some radar. And here the allied Des Moines, Not Defect, is using his radar to light up the opposing Kitakaze and Bravo. But in my opinion right now, Not Defect is slightly overextended here. He's kind of out in the open and he's in a crossfire. He could be in a crossfire between ships that are on the northwest and northeast side of the Bravo cap. So he is going to take some substantial damage here and is going to have to get out. But fortunately, the allied La Fantasque is able to torpedo out the opposing Kitakaze, which has now eliminated the opposing destroyer threat at Bravo. Now, what Ranari is doing here, in my opinion, is that he's putting himself into a very, very good position as a battleship on this map. The Allied team has a good presence at Alpha and is going to push in and push away the opposing ships that are at Alpha. So he will have his left flank secured for him, and he'll be able to come in here and be in a position where he can use some of the island cover near Bravo to limit the number and type of engagements that he's going to have. He's got an opposing Iowa, an opposing Friedrich der Große, and later a Kremlin that will move into the Bravo area that he will have to help defend against. But leveraging these islands are going to allow him to control the number of engagements that he has. But at the same time, he's close enough that his hydro and his secondaries can provide a lot of supporting, a lot of support for the Bravo cap, and his position also allows him to help defend any push from the opposing team coming through Charlie and trying to get him into Bravo. Now you notice that the opposing team has a pretty strong presence on the north side of Charlie. They are taking that cap uncontested. There is an allied Mogador, which is again one of these new French destroyers, doesn't have smoke, and so he's doing the right thing in my opinion, staying at distance, mainly working as essentially a very fast light cruiser. And so the main job, in my opinion, of the flank that is on the south side of Charlie is basically to help keep the opposing team from pushing through on the south. And as I mentioned, Ranari is in a very good position here that if the opposing team attempts to push westward through that small channel from Charlie into Bravo, Ranari is right there to basically deter that push. Now, unfortunately, Ranari has lost his division mate, not Defect, in the Des Moines, who was, I think, effectively dev-struck by the opposing Kremlin that is going to move into Bravo. So unfortunately, the Allied team has lost that radar support. But as I mentioned beforehand, the Allied team has now done a very good job pushing into Alpha and is now getting a very strong handle on the west flank. And that, again, like I said, will help Ranari be able to not be concerned about his port side being, coming into some sort of crossfire. One other thing I should note here is that there's an Allied Montana that you can currently see at the Hotel 4 region. He actually started on the far east side of the map and has basically sailed all the way westward, and then will sail up the west edge of the map and then start coming back, and then later will demand assistance when he's basically overextends himself. So not sure that was a very good play by that Montana player, but Ranari here is definitely making up for any slack of lost firepower on the west flank. Ranari's going to creep forward here because I think part of it is that he doesn't, a couple of things. He doesn't want to put himself in a crossfire between, let's say, the Kremlin and the Iowa, and he wants to keep some landmass between them. He also knows that the opposing Minotaur is now attempting to push through from the Charlie Cap towards Bravo. And what this will allow Ranari to do is he'll be able to put all guns on the Minotaur if the Minotaur pushes forward. But at the same time, Ranari's in a position that if the Minotaur does come out and attempts to torp rush Ranari is likely to be able to get out of the way. Now, unfortunately, Ranari gets a very disappointing salvo here on the opposing Republic, and but he does have his secondary set on the Republic. Now, I mentioned earlier Ranari had an all-in secondary build, and that includes IFHE for his secondaries. And the main value of IFHE for the Großer Kurfürst is to allow the 128mm guns to be able to penetrate above that 32mm threshold, which the French battleships and the Japanese battleships are sort of covered in 32mm plating, and the IFHE can have some significant benefit there. We'll see at the end of the game in the results to see how much alpha damage he did from his secondaries, so you can try to draw some conclusion about the potential influence of IFHE in this build. But at this point, Ranari is just trying to focus on, again, defending to keep the Minotaur from pushing through, and at the same time attempting to keep the Iowa from pushing in. Now, the opposing Kremlin has pushed into the Bravo Cap, and the Allied Le Fantasque is, unfortunately, in my opinion, he's overextended. He's too close to the opposing battleships. He should be backing off, let the Kremlin come in and he should spot the Kremlin, and he can keep the Kremlin basically reset the cap. So long as the Fantasque has some distance, he should be able to keep the cap defended. But like I said, right now, he's simply too close to the opponents. And if he does get detected, which he will, he's going to get basically taken out. Unfortunately, we've now also lost the Allied Mogador, who pushed in too closely to the opposing Minotaur at Charlie, and so the Allied team is down to 2 destroyers, the Akizuki and as I mentioned, the Fantasque. So the Allied Jean Bart, in fact, there we've just lost the Fantasque, so we're down. The Allied team is down to 1 destroyer. Now, the Allied Jean Bart here, in my opinion, to some extent is at risk of being overextended. He is getting some strong fire here on the opposing Minotaur. He is going to take the Minotaur out, but he's basically put himself exposed to torpedoes from the Minotaur, as well as has the potential of being in a crossfire. There, the Jean Bart is able to finish off the Minotaur, but you can see the torpedoes going in on the Jean Bart, and the Minotaur dev strikes the Jean Bart and basically gets himself some free signals in just a flesh wound achievement. So the opposing Kremlin now has pushed forward enough that Ranari can put some fire on him, including his secondaries, and there, in fact, he set a couple of fires. So one thing that we're going to notice at the end of the match is the fire production from the secondaries is actually going to be quite substantial. Ranari is firing into the guns of the Kremlin. He knows that he can't overmatch the Kremlin's bow, and in my opinion, that's the right choice, is basically try to disable or ideally destroy the main guns by firing directly into them at this point blank range. The risk that Ranari has right now is the Kremlin might attempt a ram, because the Kremlin is almost down and Ranari has a significant part of his health. Fortunately, the Kurfürst is slightly faster than the Kremlin, and so Ranari should be able to get out of the way here. Kremlin is almost down. He's down to just a few hit points. In fact, I think Ranari does get the final blow in on this Kremlin. Oh, you can see the Kremlin starting to heal back some of his health at this point. This is kind of a tough shot because he's trying to get that gun depression down so that he can get the shells in, and there, yeah, he does get it overpinned and finish off the Kremlin. So looking at the overall situation, the ship counts are even. Ranari's team has a slight point advantage because they hold 2 caps. Ranari is now having to go and defend against the opposing Republic that pushed through with the Charlie cap. He's going to swing his guns around here. Now I have to double check. I think Ranari is running the 420s. Oh no, in fact I think he's running the 406 guns on his Kurfürst in this match. But he's going to have the broadside of the Republic. In fact, the Republic takes down the opposing Alaska. Oh, I'm sorry, the Kremlin burned out the Alaska. But here, Ranari is going to get some shells in on the Republic and take him down. And again, that's evened up the ship count. Now, the opposing team has again moved back into Bravo. So right now, the teams are sort of staying even on the point spread. Both are only getting points from 1 cap each. And we can see that I think that's the opposing Iowa has moved into the Bravo cap, and the allied Akizuki is contesting that cap. Now, I'm not sure if the Akizuki has smoke, and so he's in concealment just yet, but he is very close to the Iowa. You'll notice that in chat, there's some comments being made by the opposing Republic that Ranari sank, basically saying, I fired a full salvo broadside at the GK and got nothing but bounces, and even Ranari is confused by that. I think when I went back and looked at the replay, I think the Republic actually didn't hit the main belt. I think he actually hit the turrets, in which case the turrets are much more heavily armored, and it may very well have been that he just ricocheted everything in that close engagement, and the Republic just didn't aim well or something. I'm not entirely sure. Ranari has now moved into the Charlie cap. He has no opposition at this cap, and he's going to get a solo cap out of this, which is really nice. He's up to 186,000 in damage. He's sunk a couple of ships. He's well over 400 secondary hits. So his secondaries have definitely been doing work. Again, we'll see at the end of the game how much production he gets, both in terms of alpha damage and fires from the secondaries for his play. The Allied team did sink the opposing Iowa that was in Bravo, and the 3 remaining opposing ships are not making any attempt, from what we can tell, to actually take any caps. So at this point, the Ranari's team has gotten this pretty well locked up. And Ranari's going to sail out here, and he's going to be able to put these opposing ships that are in the north central part of the map basically into a crossfire. There's the Montana player that I mentioned earlier that's started on the southeast side of the corner, is now basically made almost a full circle around the map, and has lost most of his health. I'm not sure where he lost that health from, but he was quite bitter about perceived lack of support from the team. But in my opinion, his play on this didn't strike me as very strong. But again, I'm not that player, so I'm not sure exactly what happened. So as we wind down here, Ranari's just going to sail out here, continue to put fire on these opposing ships and pad his damage numbers a little more. The opposing Saint Louis has now wandered into Ranari's secondary range, so the secondaries are going to start getting hits. Here, IFHE on heavy cruisers from the Großer Kurfürst is basically not very useful because most of the plating is 30 millimeters or less, and so he wouldn't need IFHE in order to get decent alpha damage against the Saint Louis. And in fact, he's now just earned Confederate and high caliber for his team. And the Saint Louis is just about to go down. In fact, I think the Allied Akizuki gets the final blow. So unfortunately, he's not going to get a close quarters out of this match. But Ranari is still doing a great job and going to get some more damage. That was actually a really nice hit against the Azuma at this range. Azuma clearly wants to get out of secondary range of the Kurfürst, and he does have the speed to do it. The Kurfürst has a base speed of 30 knots. The Azuma, I think, is like 35. So even with a speed signal, the Azuma is definitely going to be able to get the distance on Ranari here. Ranari is going to take a couple of torps that were sent by the Saint Louis, but it's obviously not enough to sink him. He has gone through all of his heals, and he's tanked almost 2 million in damage for his team, and he's up to over 230,000 in damage. So we're going to wind things down here with Ranari's team going to win on points. We're not going to finish off the Azuma before the match ends, and we will get to the results. Unfortunately, I don't have the leaderboard results, so we're not sure how much where Ranari landed in terms of the rankings on XP, but he earned Dreadnought, high caliber, Confederate, did 235,000 in damage, certainly very respectable, 530 secondary hits, and the alpha damage from his secondaries was 55,000. What I don't have is I don't have a breakout per ship where that damage fell, so it's a little hard to tell how much contribution of that 55,000 was likely from the secondaries. But the other aspect is that he did 54,000 in damage from fires from his secondary, so almost 100,000 in damage from the secondary. So I hope you found the new cinematics interesting and fun to watch, and I hope you enjoyed the replay and the commentary. Thank you very much, Ranari, for sending this in, and as always, we hope to see you out there, and we wish you happy sailing.